Lonzi?
Chair, I've got a question that I had, but there was a follow-up I wanted to do on the exec and the board. So I don't know if I must save that for the end when we do follow-ups.
Ask your question now.
I can ask it now. Oh, okay. So we keep, I think, raising this with the candidates, and it's a discussion that we've had even with some of the portfolio. Oh, sorry. My name is Sihle Lonzi, Sawubona Dokotela. Sorry for jumping straight into it. I'm just trying to save time. About this small contradiction, not big, of having an executive chairperson, because there may be scenarios where the chairperson of the board would participate in some executive operations, because they must go to the office, they must interact, and there's an unavoidable power dynamic that would be at play, because obviously they are not only an executive member participating in that meeting with the CEOs and other management, but they are also the board chairperson. So I wonder if you think, because even the NYDA Act does, on top of the kings that you're talking about, does also try to mitigate that problem. I wonder if you think the Act does enough in terms of the separation of those powers, or would we not benefit more as an entity if we were to have a non-executive chairperson of the board? I'm picking your brain here. There's no real correct answer to it. Yeah.
Okay. You're picking my brain. Thank you, Honorable Member. I think this issue is an issue of ethics more than anything else. Because if there's proper adherence to ethics, then we wouldn't have a problem. Because if a person knows that my job is to do this, the Act says I must do this, and this is where I stop, then we won't have issues. I think previously we've had those particular problems, not even with the NYDA, in many entities throughout the country, where there's a third hand or a hand of the chairperson or the minister in a board. So which needs then going forward for a proper legislative mandate to say that how do we prevent such? Because in some instances you find that the chair will come and say this is what I want, and then the CEO, because being pressed that I would want maybe a second term or whatsoever, then there's that commotion that is there. But I think for me it's an issue of having clear ethics and the attributes that I indicated earlier on, of having integrity, competence, and transparency in some of the decisions that are taken, to ensure that there are clear lines of reporting and clear lines on the separation of duties and power. I don't know if you picked my brain on it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that input. So the question that I had through you, Chair, is that which section of the Public Finance Management Act deals with the obligation of an accounting officer, and perhaps how would it define the requirements of financial accountability and effective controls of a public entity? Obviously, we know that the PFMA deals with a number of public entities, so maybe try to relate your response to the entity that we're concerned about now, which is the NYDA.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honourable Member, for your second question. So the NYDA is a public entity that is listed in Section 3 of the Public Finance Management Act, which gives it the juristic board a powers. So in a normal government department, the accounting officer, being the DG or the HOD, has the accounting. Okay, can you please repeat that question for me? I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Chair, I can. I don't want you to say I'm taking up too much time like yesterday.
Yeah, members I can already see members are mumbling here because you're asking two questions and now also have to.
I did ask for permission.
Yeah,
the first one was a follow-up. Sorry. I'll try to be very quick. I just need to see how to simplify. So the Public Finance Management Act has a section that deals with obligations of accounting officers of all public entities. Section 3, the one you're talking about, that's it's a separate one because it will deal the establishment of the NYDA and all of that. But there's a specific section that deals with accounting officers of public entities across the board. So I wanted to check now, how does it define the requirements for financial accountability and effective controls? Then, because it deals with all entities, I said you can give an example that relates it to the NYDA, since we're here because of the NYDA.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So the accounting officer, according to the Public Finance Management Act, has to ensure that there are proper controls, financial controls within an entity or a public or government department. Needs to ensure that the risk management relating to any financial issues is put in place. They must be able to ensure that proper prescripts or policies or legislations are adhered to, and to ensure that there is financial prudence within the organization, and to ensure that there is no wasteful or fruitless expenditure that takes place within the organization. But the important aspect is to ensure that there are proper systems that are put in place to ensure that there is proper financial management. I think that's the role of the accounting officers that they have as per the Public Finance Management Act.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miende. Honorable Michael.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Dr. Miende. I'm Honorable Khweqana, also a member of this committee. My question will be, one of the main objectives of the NYDA Act is to develop and integrate youth development plan and strategy of 2022-25 for South Africa. Develop guidelines for the implementation of the strategy and make recommendations to the President. Elaborate on your understanding of the integrated youth development strategy and why the strategy is very much important.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. So the integrated youth development strategy is like an implementing guideline. How do we implement? It's an implementing guideline for the national youth policy. So the national youth policy, as it stands, is a policy that this is what we want to see. We want to develop young people, but the integrated youth development strategy then says, how then do we do that on a day-to-day basis? Who are the relevant partners, who are the relevant civil society organizations that we want to bring on board to ensure that we develop young people? Understanding that the national youth policy maps out the 5 thematic areas that young people need to be developed on. So now the integrated youth development strategy is the guideline, is the map, this is a day-to-day guidance on how then do we do that particular development of young people based on the time frames that have been given for that particular reporting period. So that's what integrated youth development strategy is and what it seeks to achieve.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miende. Over to you, Honorable Tiamo.
Thank you, and good morning, Dr. Miende. Now, my name is Tiamo. My name is Tiamo Sotezi, and I'm going to ask you a question around issues of gender-based violence. Now, you know that it has been declared the second pandemic. You know its impact in society, and obviously it affects young people and driven by other young people. So what, in your view, are the main contributing factors that informs youth violence in South Africa, and what measures do you think can be taken to prevent or reduce the scourge of GBV amongst the young people mainly?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Quite interesting that my master's study was on issues of violence, but I was focusing on learners and learners in school. But to respond to your question on GBV, so the issue of GBV is it's multidimensional. Also, from where I come from, in KwaZulu-Natal, it has been reported that KwaZulu-Natal has the highest cases of gender-based violence. Also understanding that what we have seen in reports is not what actually is on the ground, as some women do not report those particular cases to the relevant authorities. But to start off with the causal factors. So the first causal factor is on financial dependency. Because young women, they can't afford and they're unemployed, they live in extreme poverty, then they put themselves in abusive relationships that even if they want to leave, they then think that I can't leave because this person is sustaining me and my child. And what we have seen in statistics and in research is that teenage mothers are more prevalent to being found in gender-based violence scenarios. And the second one being substance abuse or alcohol abuse. Research, I think the minister 2 days ago or yesterday was giving a report on the crime statistics that alcohol or substance abuse has become one of the causal factors one of the causal factors in most cases that relate to gender-based violence. Then maybe what the third part, particularly from where I come from, there's a phenomenon called uktwala, which for me forms part of gender-based violence because we are forcing a person to marry you without their consent or because of cultural norms or cultural expectations. So that forms part of gender-based violence, and some of the causal factors, which is financial dependency, substance abuse, and this normalized violence in our society that there's been low training or low awareness in terms of people being taught on resolving conflict, because gender-based violence in some of the cases comes from people in a relationship. Just because there's a certain perception, then the person ends up abusing the other person without trying to resolve conflict amicably. So. And then what one would do to address some of the cases when given an opportunity would be to ensure that there's partnership with Department of Social Development, as there are shelters and tutuzela centers where some of the victims are taken to, so that while in that particular transition and trying to report, trying to go through with their cases, they provide training to ensure that you get them out from the financial dependent and abusive relationships, so that they get particular skills in order for them to be able to go and look for employment or be able to start their own businesses. But the other factor within gender-based violence is how the system, the criminal justice, the justice system has not done justice for women, young women in particular, in the sense that when you go to some of the police stations, there are no gender-based violence friendly rooms. You're expected to just narrate your story of how Usbu has violated me without being given a set of privacy on that regard, which then, and secondary to that, the delay in finalization of cases causes what we call secondary victimization, which means that young women have to relive some of the moments that they would have undergone when being in those violent and abusive relationships. So I think for me, those are the causal factors of gender-based violence, and what needs to be done is to enhancing the police system and the justice system to ensure that the cases of gender-based violence, firstly, are expedited, to ensure that justice is served timelessly, and to ensure that to prevent the fundamental causes of gender-based violence, to ensure that young people are empowered to leave any abusive relationships and to leave any poverty conditions that they currently live in, to ensure that they are not at any point exposed to any conditions that require them to stay or be in a relationship with the person that abuses them. Secondary to that, gender-based violence does not only relate to women and men. LGBTQIA+ people have been have been killed in our country based on what they believe or based on who they are. So these are some of the things that when one given an opportunity to ensure that awareness campaigns are done to ensure that people are educated on the issues of LGBTQIA+ and vulnerable groups, because other groups that have been killed are people living with albinism. So we have seen an increase, particularly in rural areas where there's a certain belief or normal understanding that if you kill an albinism, there are certain powers that you get. So there's a need for awareness to be done in those particular areas to educate people on why is it important to ensure that we have a gender-based free society. I think those are the things that one would do when given an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miende. Honorable Childcare Adonis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning, Sunshine. I do hope that you have enjoyed your stay with us. My name is Tsegofadzo Megan Chauke Adonis, disabled member of this portfolio committee on women, youth, and persons with disabilities. My question, I think you've greatly answered a very large portion of it when it comes to how it is that we can address gender-based violence and how we can address violence amongst young people. But my question would then say, what is the role of the NYDA in addressing the systematic challenges that persist within the communities when we speak to violence amongst young people? So young people being perpetrators and victims themselves. How do you see the role of NYDA in this particular instance? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I think maybe we need to start with understanding the causal factors of this particular, of the prevalence of violence. So research suggests that there has been what we call a generational transmission of poverty and exclusion amongst young people. So the generational transmission of exclusion and poverty then makes young people to be a bit agitated in terms of their current conditions. Young people are currently unemployed, abasebenzi. Currently, young people have, even those with qualifications, are not employable. Thirdly, some young people they don't have relevant skills to compare to what is required by the market. So, what should then be the role of the NYDA? I think as the first function or mandate of the NYDA being to initiate, design, coordinate, monitor, and evaluate youth development programs, what then one would do will be to have what we regard as a skills revolution. So firstly, we need to understand that young people are not a homogeneous group. So young people are heterogeneous in the sense that their needs and the strategies or interventions that must be made available differ. So the first aspect will be to ensure that we provide young people with the relevant skills. So what one would do, firstly, to address the issues of unemployment that then cause young people to be violent, will be to introduce what you call, so all of us know that government has a fleet of vehicles that they use. So be it your police vehicles, your ambulances, and the different government vehicles that are there for use. So what I would do is to ensure that young people open up what you call one-stop garages. So in the garage, what the young people will be doing will be providing mechanical skills to ensure that. So in the current setting, government has I don't call it a tender, or it has a tender with certain banks where this is where you take your government vehicles for them to do any mechanical repairs, any issues relating to cars. So instead of government going to this particular establishment, I would ensure that I take young people or capacitate them on this particular on a mechanical skills, so that government, instead of taking their vehicles to this particular establishment, they take their vehicles into this particular establishment of these young people. So this proposal addresses two things. problems. It addresses issues of expediting service delivery, because in some instances you call for a police vehicle, a crime is taking place, and then there's no availability of vehicles. So ensuring that young people are provided with the necessary skills, and young people are provided with an opportunity to participate in the mainstream economy, and young people are provided with the relevant opportunities, so that they're able not to participate in these violent behaviors that they then find themselves in because of lack of certain development in their respective areas. That's what I would do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miende. Is there anything that you would like to say in closing?
I would want to thank yourself, Chairperson, and all the honorable members for the opportunity that I've been given to come and have this conversation with all of you to see how do we shape the youth of South Africa to ensure that we bring practical solutions to the problems that they're facing. Issues of teenage mothers, teenage pregnancy, which is quite prevalent, which prevents the upward mobility of those young people. So I think it has been a great triggering situation. I really appreciate all the members for their questions and all the staff members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miende. Thank you for sharing your passions with us, and thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. We also valued the interaction. Maybe just to give you a little bit of a sense of what we are doing. For the next few days, we will continue the interviews for today and tomorrow. Hopefully by next week we will deliberate on all the interviews, and hopefully by Friday next week we'll be able to adopt a report with our recommendation on candidates to serve on the next NYDA board. That report will serve in front of the National Assembly, where after our recommendations will go to the President of the country. He will exercise his prerogative and then appoint 7 new members to serve on a new NYDA board. So we really thank you for your time, and please do travel back safely and keep up the good work. We are proud of you. Thank you.